So thank you so much for joining us in the first of Share to Buy's expert sessions. It's really great to have you on. I can see we have a lot of you already, so thank you so much for spending your evening with us. I am Jade from Share to Buy. I'm going to be passing over to the lovely Natasha soon, who's going to be doing a bit of a presentation about shared ownership for you. But just beforehand, a little bit of kind of housekeeping. I want to say thank you so much to everyone that's kind of sent us questions via social media so far. We've had tons and tons of good questions for us to go through in a Q&A session at the end. In the meantime, during the presentation, if you do have any other questions, you can pop them in the chat box to the right of your screen. So if Natasha kind of mentions anything or we discuss anything that you really want to find out more about, pop them over there. If you can't see the chat section, there should be a little tab with 3 dots, like an orange tab. You can open that from there and you'll be able to kind of see all the stuff we're talking about throughout. And yeah, before we hand over, just again, thank you so much for taking part. It's great to have you all here and to know that, you know, despite lockdown and the current situation, buyers are still interested and we can all still get together and have a little chat about shared ownership. So without further ado, Natasha, I will pass over to you.
Thanks, Jade. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time out to join us this evening. We're really excited to be partnering with Share to Buy to be able to bring you this webinar. Obviously, as Jade alluded to, given the current circumstances, where we'd love to be able to show you around our homes across London and the country, we're not able to do so. So what better way to keep the conversation going about shared ownership than to come into your living rooms and have this conversation with you. I'm sure this is going to be informative for you, and I'm hoping that you'll get everything that you need to be able to start on your home ownership journey. So let's get into it. So I'm Natasha Tull, and I'm one of the regional sales managers at Clarion. And Clarion is the housing association, one of the largest in the country, the largest social landlord in Europe, actually. And we develop across the country, so Manchester down to Brighton. And we've been developing homes for over 100 years. So we are really experienced in engaging with people who want to get into their forever home and just settle. So we're excited that you'll join us today. And let's kick off by just asking you guys a question, really. We want to take a poll and find out a little bit about where you guys are at the moment. So you will see on the right-hand side of your screen, the polls. There should be a little red dot indicated on there as well. So we just want to engage with you and ask a question. So if you just head over there and click, you'll see the question. We're asking you, what stage of the buying process are you currently at? So are you actively looking? Do you know a little bit about shared ownership? Are you an expert now and just wanting to just take that final step and actually go ahead and buy? So please engage with that poll so we can sort of see where you're at. So the main question we want to answer today is, what is shared ownership? So shared ownership is a government-backed scheme that allows first-time buyers an opportunity to buy a home and to get onto the property ladder. In essence, it's really buying a bit and renting a bit. So you buy a share of the property, minimum share 25%, anything up to 75%, and you rent or you pay a rent on the portion of the property that you don't own. So every month you'll be paying a mortgage payment to the bank, a rental payment to the housing association, and in most cases a service charge as well. Typically speaking, when you combine those 3 payments, the rent, service charge and mortgage, it's meant to be about the same or slightly cheaper than if you were renting a similar property in the private market. So shared ownership allows you to finally get out of renting a property into owning part of your own home, which may be your forever home, with the added benefit of it being a bit more affordable. The key benefits of shared ownership are really that you are not priced out of areas where you might not otherwise be able to buy. So particularly in London, where the cost of living is continually on the increase, people do find that in the areas perhaps where they grew up and they've been regenerated and changed, that they're now priced out of living in the communities that they're most familiar with. And shared ownership really allows affordable homes to be built and developed in those areas, allowing mixed communities to continue to thrive and people to stay in areas that they love and cherish. That's really a great thing about shared ownership. So Clarion develop across London. We've got developments all over the city, in Brent, Enfield, Sutton, Croydon, Wandsworth, but to name a few. So, as we said, that it allows you to buy in areas where you may be priced out. It allows you to buy with a lower deposit. So, for example, if you were looking at an apartment that was priced at £600,000, for example, a 10% deposit, you need £60,000 as a deposit, which is a huge amount of money for first-time buyers to have to come up with. Shared ownership says to you that you can buy a 25% share and need a much less deposit in order to take that first step onto the property ladder. And you're also buying from an experienced landlord who has been in the property business for a long time, understands the kind of homes that people want to live in, and really designs those homes with you in mind. That gives you that peace of mind as well. When it comes to shared ownership eligibility, you are thinking about, in London particularly, households with a maximum income of £90,000. So that's combined gross income. So for example, a couple who both earn £45,000 each, or an individual who earns up to £90,000 each. You can buy by yourself, you can buy with friends, you can buy with a sibling, you can buy with family members. We have seen in the past parents who buy with an adult child. So there are different scenarios that try to make sure that as many people as possible can access affordable home ownership options. In most cases, you can buy anywhere in London. There are a few exceptions where some boroughs give priority to local people. It doesn't mean that you can never buy there, but there are some boroughs that ask us to prioritise local people. And we welcome applicants of with all sorts of situations and backgrounds. So whether you are looking for your first home, or you are perhaps wanting to downsize because the kids have grown up and moved out, or whether you are starting a family and you need more space and you need an extra room. If you've suffered a relationship breakdown, for example, and you need a fresh start, again, all of these scenarios, shared ownership could really be a great way for you to get your foot on the property ladder and a secure home for yourself, for you. So in essence, as long as you can get a mortgage and you're a first-time buyer, we can help you. So if you are searching for a home for shared ownership, what we ask you to do, or what we advise that you do, is that you pop onto sharetobuy.com. So I'm going to just show you what that platform looks like, which is a search engine for shared ownership homes. And when you go onto the property search function on Share to Buy, it gives you the option to be able to choose what area you'd like to live in. So some of the questions that you might want to ask yourself before you start the search process is, what are the elements of buying a home are most important to you? So do you need a certain number of rooms? Do you need to be in a certain area where perhaps your kids are going to school, or where you want them to go to school? Do you need to be within a certain distance from work? Do you need to be near a tube station or an overground station? Do you need parking? So once you've kind of made a list of all of the really sort of essential things that you're looking for in a home, you can begin to narrow that down by area. And you can type in, like I have done here, Wandsworth, which is where I am right now in Windsor Apartments. And it'll bring up all of the properties that are available for shared ownership in that borough. And you can widen the search to 1 mile radius, or beyond, depending on how far you're prepared to look within that area. So once you've identified the area, you want to look at the figures. So I've just snapshot Windsor Apartments, which has come up here, and it gives you a breakdown of the costs that you're looking at. So it tells you that it's a 1-bedroom apartment. It tells you what the full price is and what share is available and what the minimum deposit is. And that minimum deposit represents 5%. And then on the bottom left-hand corner there, you'll see the budget calculator, which is a really useful tool and calculates everything automatically for you based on some assumptions. So it's assuming a 5% deposit and it's assuming that you'll be buying a 25% share. And it gives you a breakdown of what you'd be paying for your rent, your service charge, and your mortgage payments. It gives you the sort of that total figure so that you can cost as to whether or not it's within the price bracket that you think that you may be looking for. Now, because this is based on assumptions, don't take it for face value, because I know sometimes people will see that and be like, right, definitely can't afford that, or definitely not what I'm looking for. But because it's based on assumptions, your personal circumstances might be different. So if the property looks right from you, from the description and the location, it's always worthwhile contacting us and talking through what the options are and what your specific circumstances are. It may be that you have a greater deposit and you've got more than £8,000, and that may change the figures for you and make the monthly payments more affordable for you. You may be able to buy a bigger share, so there may be options that we will be looking at with you based on your specific circumstances that would be able to guide you to buying this property. So never feel priced out, or never feel like there's no option, that you're limited with your options just by looking at the snapshot from this budget calculator. Once you've identified the property that you're interested in, if you click through to view details, it will take you to the scheme specific or development specific page, where you'd be invited to contact the housing association. So contact Clarion and register your interest. Your interest will come through to us and we'll get in touch with you and begin the conversation with you about your affordability and perhaps getting you in to have a look or sending you information about the development. We would be inviting you initially to do a financial assessment. And the initial financial assessment is just asking some really basic questions that are quite fundamental to the process. So what's the household income? How much savings do you have? Do you live and work in the areas? Some basic criteria to make sure that not only are you eligible financially, but if there are any specifics for that particular development, we'll be checking them off there as well. Once it's checked off that the property is affordable to you, depending on what stage we are at with the development, it may be that it's still under construction, it may be that we have a show home available. We'll either be sending you brochures, price lists, or inviting you to view. At this present moment in time, Clarion are really excited to have been able to put together quite a number of virtual tours. So we can send you links which will allow you to have a look at the property and decide whether you would like to pursue that particular opportunity. Once you've viewed or you've seen the marketing material and you are interested in the property, we would be asking you to fill out some forms and potentially reserve the property. So right now we're really excited to be offering an incentive for you. So given the present circumstances, we want to make home ownership really accessible. So we've reduced our reservation fee, which is normally £500 to £99. So if anytime between now and the end of June, you reserve a property with Clarion, your reservation fee will only be £99. And that's a great offer to allow you to secure a home in an affordable way for you. So once you've reserved the property, we will be asking you to go back and speak to an independent mortgage advisor who will carry out a full financial assessment with you. So they will be asking you a few more detailed questions. So they'd want to be talking to you about your current financial circumstances. So they may want to see your pay slips, proof of your deposit and your savings. They'll be asking you information about any financial commitments, so whether you've got credit cards, loans, hire purchase, anything that the mortgage lenders will be taking into consideration when they decide whether or not to lend to you. And they'll be putting all that information to you and giving you advice about the best mortgage rates on the market for you and your specific circumstances. Now, they do this service free of charge, but they will also be inviting you to use their services to broker the mortgage for you. You can choose to do that, or you can choose to approach your own bank or a high street lender. It's entirely up to you. But that initial process with the financial advisors doesn't have an impact on your credit score, so don't worry about your interaction with them, and it doesn't commit you to using their services. It's really to understand that you are in a position to be able to proceed and secure a mortgage to go ahead and buy your first home. Once that assessment has been done and everything has been signed off, in essence, we will be issuing what we call a memorandum of sale, which basically just details the property transaction details, so how much it is, your details and our details, and we'll be asking you to appoint a solicitor who will be representing you in the purchasing process. They'll be asking questions about the development on your behalf and just doing a bit of due diligence for you to make sure that everything is covered off for you. And you'd also be asked to either engage with the financial advisors to arrange your mortgage or pursue that process on your own. Once those instructions have been made, it does go quiet for a few weeks whilst they sort of burrow away and arrange the mortgage for you and ask the questions that they need to ask. And once that's come together and your mortgage offer is in place, we'll start a conversation with you about potentially when you would be able to move into the property. So generally speaking, there are 2 stages. So you may take the route where you're buying a property off plan. And off plan just basically means that the development hasn't actually been built to completion yet. So you may not have necessarily seen the actual property that you're buying, but we would have shared with you images and computer-generated images, photos and other material to help you to understand what you're buying. If that's the case, we would be looking to exchange contracts with you and then fix a completion date or a move-in date at the point in the future when the development is actually built out. If the property is completed and ready to move in, we would arrange that date with you once your solicitor is satisfied, and a member of the Clarion sales team will be meeting you with the keys to your brand new home. So the process is straightforward, and we understand that sometimes a lot of these things can sound jargony or complicated, but your Clarion sales execs are here and on hand to help you through every stage of the process to make it as smooth as possible for you. Generally speaking, the process from start to finish, all things being well, can take 28 days up to exchange of contracts from when your solicitor receives information from Clarion. And beyond that, it could take maybe perhaps a couple of extra weeks or months, depending on whether or not the property has actually been fully developed and is ready to move in. So just a couple of things to think about when you are looking at preparing yourself to buy a property. One of the main things I would say that I found that slows things down for people and perhaps causes them to have to reset the process is their credit reports. This is really, really crucial. When you feel like you're at the stage when you want to go and start looking for a home, check your credit file. Just check to make sure that there isn't anything on there that might come as a surprise to you. That has happened in the past, and it could be little things, a single missed payment for a phone bill, or a late payment on a utility bill, anything like that. Any financial commitment where there's a late payment or a default can hinder the process, because mortgage lenders are looking to see how consistent you make your payments and whether there are any defaults or missed payments, etc. It doesn't mean that you'll be ruled out, but it may limit the number of lenders that you have access to. So it's something that's worthwhile checking out, because it does come up with lenders. So you want to make sure that you're aware rather than finding out when they've started doing those checks. So just be mindful that you just need to make sure that you've got all of those things lined up and you're in a position to be able to proceed. The other thing is thinking about, depending on whether you're going down the buying from plan route or whether you're buying a property that's already ready to move in, is how long you're tied into your tenancy. Do you have 3 months, 6 months left? And just understanding the timings to make sure that there's not a massive overlap, or equally time doesn't run out and then you haven't got anywhere to live until that property is built as well. So just something to bear in mind. The other thing is local authority requirements. As I said before, there are some boroughs that do ask us to prioritise local people. So it may be that for a particular period of time, or each round of us allowing people to reserve, that we have to prioritise local people. So generally speaking, you will always have priority in the borough that you live and or work in. So bear that in mind when you're completing your search. It doesn't stop you from buying across London. but it's worth asking the question about the borough that you want to live in, whether there may potentially be any restrictions in that regard. But again, if you're unsure, pick up the phone and a Clarion sales exec will be happy to help you and talk you through what the process is for that particular development. And again, just being mindful that if you are buying from plan, sometimes things do take a little bit longer, and there may be some time between you exchanging contracts and actually completing on the purchase of your property as well. But again, we're on hand to help you and guide you through the process to make sure that it's as seamless as possible for you. So we are currently at Windsor Apartments on Prince of Wales Drive, and we're really excited about this development. We have got some stunning 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, and I'm sat here in the showroom at Radley House. So we just want to share with you a little a video tour of the development, just to give you a flavour of the kind of homes that Clarion have up for sale. So homes at Windsor Apartments are in a unique position, just 180 metres from one of London's finest riverside parks, Battersea Park, which provides an oasis of calm in prime central London's fastest developing and most dynamic quarter. In addition, the development benefits from 2.5 acres of new landscapes and public open space, featuring pedestrian access to Battersea Park through its own reclaimed arches. So the homes at Windsor Apartments, Prince of Wales Drive, are situated in a prime location at the heart of the extensive regeneration of Battersea. Formerly occupied by the Victorian gas holders alongside the iconic Battersea Power Station, the area has today been transformed with highly considered architecture, which mindfully honours its industrial past. The aesthetic design is balanced harmoniously with extensive landscape communal gardens that introduce an appealing corridor of natural tranquility. The homes offer a really good spec and are well designed for family living. The homes at Prince of Wales Drive, Windsor Apartments start at £600,000 for a 1-bed apartment and are available to occupy now. As you can see, the apartments are really stunning and would love to talk to you in more detail about them. So if you are curious and you want some more information, please feel free to contact us and we'll be happy to send you a video tour of the apartments, and the brochure and price lists are also available on sharetobuy.com. So at the end of this webinar, we'll be sharing our contact details. Give us a call, email us, and we'll be happy to talk to you more about Windsor Apartments. We also have a couple of other developments that I'd like to share with you as well. So we have got Verdant News, which is in Kingston upon Thames. And if you go to the offers button on the right-hand side of your screen, I'll just do that with you now. Again, the same offer that we have right now for a £99 reservation applies to all our developments in London. So you can take a virtual tour of Verdant News and have a look around. We've got some 1, 2 and 3 bedroom apartments, and they're 10 or 15 minutes away from Kingston Town Centre, which offers you a really nice suburban location at really affordable prices. The 1 beds there start from £350,000, so it's a steal. And we also have Hounslow Place, which is in Hounslow East. Again, you can reserve here for £99, and this development is a 5-minute walk from Hounslow East station and also 5 minutes away from the high street, making it a fantastic central location. And we've got 1 and 2 bedroom apartments available now. So please check out the Clarion's development page on sharetobuy.com, and you can see more information about all of our developments across London. So just want to give you an illustration about the finances that I was speaking to you about earlier. So on your screen now, you'll see an illustration of Windsor Apartments. So we've got a £645,000 apartment. That's the full value of the property. The minimum share is 25%, which is £161,250. And for a 5% deposit, you would need just £8,063. This would make the average mortgage on the purchase value £780 a month, and rent on the remaining share £1,020 per month, and the total being approximately £1,800 per month. And as I said before, this makes it on par with similar new build one-bed apartments for rent in the area. The advantage of shared ownership is that you own a bit of it. So just by way of illustration, I'll also show you an example of the affordability for Verdant News. A one-bedroom apartment there is on the market for £350,000. 25% share at £87,500, and you'd only need £4,375 as a deposit. The average mortgage being £440 a month, and the rent being £602 a month, totaling £1,042 per month for a one-bed apartment in Kingston. These values exclude, these totals exclude service charges. So always make sure that you account for the service charge and the final overall cost to understand what your monthly outgoings are likely to be. So again, these two examples, they're working on minimum assumptions. So we've assumed a 25% share and we've assumed 5% deposit. So the monthly total is completely dependent on your individual circumstances. So when we speak to you and we put you in touch with the financial advisors, they'll be able to work out what the minimum share is that you can afford. It may be that you can buy 40%, 45%, 30%, all depends on your income, financial commitments and your savings. Again, if you've got a higher deposit, you might allow you to buy additional shares in the property and reduce your monthly payments as well. So I would stress, never feel just by looking at the initial figures on an illustration, on a price list or on the share to buy portals that you're excluded from buying a property. Always pick up the phone, email us, talk to us, and we can guide you through what the best options are for you and how your circumstances can potentially get you on the property ladder. If it's not at Verdant News, it could be somewhere else, and we're always happy to help. So if we can understand what you're looking for in your property search, we can marry you up with a home that we've got, and I'm sure we can help you. Okay, so what we want to just do now is take another poll. So if you, again, go up to the right-hand side and click on the polls, we've got another question for you. And that question is just around your current circumstances. So we would like to understand what your current housing status is. Are you living with parents? Are you renting from the local authority? Are you renting privately? Do you already own your own home? Are you living in temporary accommodation? So if you could kindly participate in that survey, please, that would be really great. And again, just stressing that none of those categories preclude you from being able to buy shared ownership. You can be in any one of those sort of living arrangements and still be able to go on and buy a shared ownership property. Okay, so that's enough of me kind of rabbiting on and giving you a little bit of information about shared ownership. I'd love to hear your questions and be able to help you and guide you through the process. So Jade, have we got any questions?
We have so many questions. This has been really great, guys. Thank you so much for interacting in the way you have. There's been such high levels of engagement, Natasha. So let's straight off the bat. A few viewers have actually quite a few people both on the live chat and in social media beforehand have asked just if you could give us an explanation of how rent and service charges are calculated on shared ownership properties.
Sure, that's a really good question, and it's an important question that everybody should be taking into consideration when they're thinking about affordability and what they're buying into. So typically for shared ownership, the rent is calculated on the unsold share. So if you buy a 25% share, the calculation is made on the 75% share that you haven't purchased. And without trying to overcomplicate things by giving you the formula, it's typically 2.75% of the unsold share. So you would take the value of the unsold share, divide it by 100, times it by 2.75, and then divide that by 12, and then that will give you what your monthly costs will be. But if I've said that too quickly and that's gone over your head, don't worry. When you go on to sharetobuy.com, that budget calculator has already done that calculation for you, so you can already see what that cost is going to be. If you're still not clear, because sometimes those percentages do change from development to development, pick up the phone, get into contact with us, and we'll be happy to talk you through that. The service charge question is, again, a really good question, and it's always going to be development specific. So no two developments are going to have the same service charges, but typically speaking, there are going to be some consistencies that you'll see on a development in terms of costs. So you'll be contributing towards the building's insurance, you'll be contributing towards communal lighting and communal cleaning. You'll be contributing towards the maintenance and servicing of the lift if where you are buying into has got the benefit of having a lift there. If there are communal grounds, the maintenance of the grounds as well. And all of those costs are generally estimated at the beginning of the life of a development. So they will project an estimate, and at the end of the accounting year for that development, they will take the actual spend on lighting, cleaning, etc. And those accounts are audited and available for leaseholders to request if they want to see that information. And the budgets are adjusted based on the expenditure of that development. So they can go up and down each year, but it depends on what's had to be done to maintain the quality of the development.
Yeah, that's really good to know that there's that transparency there, that you can request those audits and stuff. I think that's really, really important for buyers to know, actually. So we had a few people coming on the live chat asking about whether basically prices of shared ownership homes are negotiable. So we had one from Sophia, for example, saying if the property is on sale for 40%, can I buy a lower percentage?
Generally speaking, if it's a resale property, you wouldn't be able to, because you can only sell what the current owner already has. Even for new builds, it's typically set from time to time. There may be exceptions where that may be lowered, but generally speaking, the minimum share that is advertised is the minimum that we can sell it for. So the percentage isn't negotiable, and neither is the value, because the good thing about shared ownership is we do not value the properties ourselves as housing associations. They're independently valued. So when we come to sell the development, we go out and approach a RICS chartered surveyor, so the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. They will send along a surveyor and they will determine the price that we can sell the homes for, and that's what you get. So you can have the confidence that when you buy a shared ownership property, it's not been overvalued, it's a market value, and it's independently valued from the housing association. So we're not just trying to make up figures and sell them. That's actually been done in a way that means that you're getting a genuine deal.
That's fantastic. And we've had a question through on Twitter which asks, can you move from one property to another on the same scheme? Basically, he's in a shared ownership flat, but he's looking to move to a house.
Yeah, and absolutely you can. The beauty about shared ownership is flexibility, in a sense, because your life changes. You could have bought the property as a single applicant, and you could have an elderly parent who needs support and now needing to stay with you. You could have had kids, and you've outgrown the space that you're in. So yes, you can move from shared ownership to shared ownership. The only thing is that because you already own a home, one of the main criteria for shared ownership is that it's you're a first-time buyer and you don't already own a home. So in that circumstance, you would have already needed to have started the process of selling your current home. So at Clarion, we ask that you already have an offer on that home, so that we know that you've got somebody who's committed to buying your home, so that you can start the process of then buying a home that is now better suited to your needs. But yes.
Sorry, Natasha. Yeah, I was just going to say, I guess it's important there as well to remember that you still need to fit within the eligibility criteria that comes with shared ownership. So if you're selling a shared ownership home and moving into another, you still need to be earning under that £90,000 as a household in London, under 80,000 outside, and still fit within that before you can purchase a new property.
Absolutely, yeah, that's right. Thanks.
Great. So we've had a question from Moira, who has asked, can you use shared ownership with Help to Buy?
No, you can't, I'm afraid. They are two completely separate products. And again, engage with us, let us know which development you're interested in. Sometimes the developments offer both routes and you can choose which route suits you best. Typically with Help to Buy, you need a much higher deposit than you would for shared ownership. So again, it completely depends on your financial circumstances, which route you can take, but it's one or the other.
Yeah, and I think what causes a lot of confusion there is because of the Help to Buy ISA. So for a lot of people that are on the chat now or tuning in will probably already have that. It stopped running, I think, November last year. But you can use the money in your Help to Buy ISA towards a shared ownership property, but the Help to Buy equity loan is different to shared ownership. So I think it's just getting your head around that and researching those two kind of individual schemes as well, which is really important.
Absolutely.
I had a question from Zoe, who asked, can you tell me if it's possible to run a business such as beauty treatments from a shared ownership home?
That's another great question. Lots of great questions this evening. The shared ownership lease precludes running a business from your home. The reason being is that the main purpose for shared ownership is trying to get people into a home. In many cases, people's very first homes, and it's not meant to be for business purposes. So there is a general exclusion on running your own business. However, speak to the housing association, let us understand your individual circumstances. Sometimes permission can be granted. It depends on what it is that you're doing. If you're, for example, a graphic designer and your registered address for your business is at home and you're just on the computer doing the work, then that's one thing. But if you are a hairdresser and you're potentially using chemicals that are quite potent, it can be seen as antisocial by your neighbours potentially, and it may have issues in terms of insurance with the heat and things like that. So generally, it's a no, and the lease does preclude it.
Yeah, that's really good to know as well. So we have had a question through from Viara, who has asked, does a buyer's residence status matter when buying a property? For example, if they're settled or pre-settled?
Another great question. It does matter, not so much to the housing association. It's really about whether or not you can get lending or a mortgage lender to take your case on. So typically speaking, if you have unsettled status, they would want you to have maybe a higher deposit as greater security for them because of your status. So it may be that rather than the 5% route that we've demonstrated tonight, that you may need to have a minimum 10%, a minimum 20%, but it all depends on your overall financial circumstances. So your employment status, your savings, etc. But yes, there may be issues around your settled status. But speak to us. We'll get you in touch with a financial advisor, and they can speak to you about your individual circumstances. So if you do want to know the answer to that question for yourself, just drop us a message, and we'll get you in touch with a financial advisor.
Fab. And one thing I have seen come up quite a lot is actually just about the process of selling a shared ownership home. I think there's often a misconception that once you've bought a property, you can't actually sell it on and there's no buyers there. And I just don't think that's the case at all. So if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Of course. So we have people buying and selling shared ownership properties all the time. And again, beauty of shared ownership is the flexibility that it could suit you now, and then 3 years time, 5 years time, it doesn't suit you anymore, your circumstances have changed and you can move on. So that process, we call it resales. So if you get to that point where you now need to move on, contact the housing association. We will send you information about our resales process. But typically speaking, it's quite similar to buying the property in the first instance. So we would be asking that you go and get a valuation instructed. So we can understand what the value of the property is. We would be we're trying to identify a buyer for you. So we've got 8 weeks in the nominations period within your lease where we can try to advertise a property for you and help you sell that property to another person in circumstances that potentially you were in at the time that you bought as well. We'd love to be able to, having helped you, help another person get onto the property ladder for the first time. So we'd advertise a property in the same fashion on sharetobuy.com and process applicants in the same way. You'd facilitate the viewings, and once you've had somebody interested, the process kind of goes hand in hand until you get to an exchange and completion, just the same. So no, there's no real issues with selling that are unique to shared ownership. Yeah, so definitely you can resell your home.
Great. So we actually have a lot of questions coming in again via chat and over social about buying more shares in your property. So for people that aren't aware of the term, this is something we call staircasing. But we had one come through here, which is, can you talk us through the staircasing process, and are there any challenges when doing so?
Okay, sure. So staircasing, as Jade said, it's the process whereby you buy additional shares in your home. So, for example, if you had started off with a 25% share and you'd come into some money, or you have got a promotion at work and you're just able to now buy, you could buy in 10% increments, a minimum 10%. So you could go 10% and then 15, 20, 25 up until 100. So you can go from 25 to 100 if you could afford to do that, or you can go from 25 to 50 to 75 to 100. So you again contact the housing association, would get the property valued, understand what the value is of the bit of the share that you don't own, determine what percentage you could buy. So again, a financial advisor would be getting involved to see how far your finances could stretch and how much you could actually afford to buy. And then you'd be applying for a mortgage again, and the process kind of runs from there. There are some very rare exclusions for shared ownership and for staircasing, but they tend not to apply in London anyway. These are sort of in the rural areas where there's a limited amount of new homes and there is a restriction on staircasing, but that's typically not the case in London.
Yeah, and I think it's important for people to know as well that staircasing is completely optional. I think there's often this fear of, oh God, what if I buy 25% and then I'm forced to buy extra? It's actually completely up to you guys. So if you, like you said, Natasha, if you come into money, you can choose to buy more shares. And actually that's not for everyone. It is for some people, and it's completely the owner's choice, really, which is a good option to have.
And I think it's also important to say that there's no time frame. You can staircase after being there for 2 years. You can staircase after 10 years. We won't be knocking on your door and asking you. We may from time to time remind you that you can staircase, but there's certainly no pressure to do so. You do so as and when you're comfortable and as and when you can afford to do so.
Fab. So we have quite a big question from Chloe, which is, due to the current situation across the country and the world, would you recommend buying a property right now? And is there ways that shared ownership can help us during this current situation?
That is a big yeah. And it's one I'm sure that everybody who's watching who has indicated that they're seriously looking is really thinking about. And the reality is that when you are looking to settle into your forever home, when is the best time to settle? That's really kind of the question that I think you might be asking me. If it's the right place for you, the right location, the right property for you and your family and your aspirations, then you have to take a view to say, it's what's on offer is what's right for me, and I can afford to do so. And you make your decision on that basis. There's uncertainties will always come and go, but there are opportunities to be had even at this moment in time, which is in part one of the reasons why we are offering that £99 reservation incentive at Clarion, to say, look, there's so many things going on that may be putting you off, but this is not going to be a reason to put you off. Reserve and start that journey. But you need to have that conversation with your friends and your family about what's right for you at this particular moment in time. Again, if you've got questions, contact Clarion and we'll be happy to give you the information that you need so that you can make an informed decision as to what's best for you.
Brilliant. So we'll probably be able to fit in a couple more questions. What I will say, guys, is if you don't have yours answered today, don't worry, we will be coming back to people. Plus, this will actually be, this is all being recorded, so we'll be putting this online if you want to go back over anything Natasha said. And we are doing these webinars weekly, so there will be other opportunities for you to take part in these. But for our next question, Mary has asked, I'm in my 60s and currently rent my accommodation. Does the shared ownership scheme apply to pensioners in my age group?
A great question. And I keep saying this, but the beauty of shared ownership is how flexible it is. So Mary, you are completely free to apply for a shared ownership home. We welcome your application. Give us a call, and we'll be happy to guide you through what your options are. It will be tailored to your specific circumstances. A lot of 60-year-olds are still at work and still employed, and so very much mortgageable and can get the mortgages that they need to be able to get onto the property ladder. And what might be something that you need to think about is the term of that mortgage and what those mortgage payments will be, and how sustainable that will be for you for the length of your mortgage period. But by all means, you're not precluded from applying for shared ownership. So find a property that you love, and give us a call, and we'll talk you through the process. But definitely, you're welcome to apply.
Fantastic. And we have had this question for you a couple of times, actually. So do buyers get their security deposits back if they pass the eligibility and financial assessment but refused a mortgage?
Good question. There are some terms and conditions when you reserve a property. So when we have that conversation with you about reserving, we send you a copy of the terms and conditions that apply to that reservation. Generally speaking, if you've been completely transparent in the financial assessment, the initial financial assessment about your financial commitments, any bad debt, any CCJs, any outstanding credit, things like that, the financial advisors factor all of that in to whether or not they come back to us and say that the properties are affordable for you. So if that process has been done honestly and transparently, there shouldn't be any reason why you shouldn't be able to get a mortgage, because when they do that assessment, the financial advisors are aware of which lenders require what and what their criteria is. So they'll, in the back of their minds, be tailoring your responses to their questions or to their initial assessment based on what they know to be the lender's criteria. So as much as there is some transparency at that stage, you shouldn't not get a mortgage. If anything comes out of the wash and perhaps you didn't realise, or whatever the circumstances are, we will take it on a case-by-case basis based on the reason why the lender has refused you a mortgage, as to whether or not that reservation fee is refunded. But at the point where your mortgage offer has come in, the housing association would have done quite a lot of work and to have got you to a certain point in the process. So pick up the phone, email us, and we'll have the conversation with you.
Brilliant. And Tracy has asked, can you buy shared ownership homes through the council?
They're not well. Some councils are now starting to develop their own shared ownership properties. Quite a recent thing, I would say, where they've set up their own development companies, and you can approach local authorities to buy a property. There are also some local authorities or councils that are offering tenants cash incentives to give up their tenancies and move on to home ownership. So there are lots of options to try to get people onto the property ladder, and you can do that in some instances through a local authority. The benefit of coming through a housing association is that we're not restricted by a borough. We develop across the city and across the country, so we can be your one-stop shop, so you can see everything that we've got as well. But yes, some local authorities are starting to develop their own homes and also selling shared ownership.
Great. So I think we have time for one more. So I'm going to go for one that seems to be popping up quite a lot, which we hear a lot of Shared to Buy as well, which is, can you decorate? So can you do what you like to your home once you're in?
Good question. Yes, you can. So basically, for the most part, if you're buying a brand new shared ownership property, because it's newly built, you have what comes with it, what's known as a defects liability period. So for the first 12 months, sometimes 2 years of the property being built, the developer is liable for any sort of defects that might come up in the property. So our general advice is, when you move into a brand new home, do as little as possible in terms of decoration in the first 12 months or for the length of that defects liability period. Reason being, for example, that if you put a picture up on the wall and a crack appears, it may be difficult to determine whether the crack was due to dodgy workmanship or dodgy DIY projects. So just for the avoidance of doubt, we just say leave it as a blank canvas as much as you can, but you can do it if you want to. You can paint, you can wallpaper, you can do some basic cosmetic things. There are some things that you would need permission from the housing association to do, like changing the flooring. This might be because you've got underfloor heating and the system might get compromised if you sort of get somebody in who doesn't understand the mechanisms of it. So we want to make sure that they're doing it properly. And also in terms of noise nuisance, if you live in an apartment, we don't want somebody to be putting flooring that's going to make lots of noise for the neighbours downstairs. So there are some things that we'll be asking you to be mindful of and that you'd have to contact us for permission to do so. But generally speaking, you can decorate, you can put shelves up and you're not restricted. Again, beauty of shared ownership and not private renting. It's in essence your home, even though you own a share of it. We want you to feel comfortable. We want you to put your stamp on it and make it your own space so you can decorate and enjoy your home.
That's fantastic. So guys, I think we're gonna have to call it a day just because we're 50 minutes in, and I know there's hundreds and hundreds of questions coming through, and it's so great to see everyone so engaged. But like I said, sit tight. We will be working on coming back to all of you. There's loads of good questions that we'll discuss with Natasha and come back to you on after the session. Natasha, you were fantastic. Thank you so much. That was all really informative and great for people to kind of hear firsthand from you guys. Thank you to everyone for watching. Thank you for all the questions. One thing I will say, guys, as well, because this is going on weekly now, if you have any feedback for us, if there's any particular topics that you want to know more about in the future, let us know, and we'll definitely try and work something in to kind of make sure that we're getting all the information you need to you. In the meantime, all I'd say is that we'll be back next Thursday, so not Tuesday, and we'll be with a speaker from Catalyst Homes, and we'll be talking about your lockdown options for buying a property. So very, very topical at the moment, obviously, seeing as we're all indoors all the time. And yeah, thank you so much. Keep an eye on sharetobuy.com and our social media channels to find kind of registration links when we go live. But in the meantime, stay safe and have a good one. Thanks.
Yeah, Jade will be putting our contact details there as well. So if you want to get in touch with us, our phone number, our email address will be made available to you as well. And a thank you from Clarion for joining us this evening.
Fantastic.
Thanks
Thanks, guys. Bye.